I think Andrea Vance comparing Nicola Willis to Ruth Richardson is pure gold. And I think it actually upset her more than the "see you next Thursday" comment. Because it's basically a little jab pointing out Nikki no votes for the Atlas Network operative she truly is.
If you're about to go into the new Pizzagate of the left conspiracy theory, then I'll be real disappointed.
Now, before you say it's all just a conspiracy theory, let me point out a few weird connections and then you can tell me your opinion.
Do the ACT Party have any links or connections to the Atlas Group?
No.
So, up until recently, the chair of the Atlas Network was Debbie Gibbs, daughter of Alan Gibbs, a prominent businessman here in New Zealand and founder of the ACT Party and longtime funder. Alan apparently brought the Centre for Independent Studies to New Zealand, which is an Australian think tank and current member of the Atlas Network. He was also an active member of the New Zealand Business Roundtable, now known as the New Zealand Initiative. The New Zealand Initiative also being a current Atlas Network member, along with the New Zealand Taxpayers Union and the Free Speech Union, which aren't really unions, by the way. Our feminist bestie Nikki was a director of the corporate think tank the New Zealand Initiative and resigned just before going into politics for the National Party in 2017. In 2012, Nikki was a lobbyist for Fonterra. Oh, and would you look at that? Fonterra is a member of the New Zealand Initiative. Nikki's daddy is James Willis, partner in the corporate law firm Bell Gully. And would you look at that? It is an associate member of the New Zealand Initiative. Daddy James was also the chairman of the New Zealand Energy Corporation, an active oil and gas exploration company based in Canada, until he resigned in October 2024. And look at that! They found gas in Taranaki. And before Daddy James resigned, he signed an agreement to sell the gas to Genesis Energy, New Zealand's largest electricity generator. And would you look at that? They too are a member of the New Zealand Initiative. And who would be the chairman of Genesis Energy? Barbara Chapman, who also happens to be the deputy chair of the New Zealand Initiative.
Coincidence? I think not!
But wait, that's not all. Auntie Barb's used to be the chief executive and managing director of the ASB Bank, another member of the New Zealand Initiative. Not only that, but she is also an independent director on the board of Fletcher Building and was an active chair until February this year, who are, you guessed it, another New Zealand Initiative member.
And then?
An independent director on the board of BNZ, yet another New Zealand Initiative member.
And then?
She has been on the Reserve Bank Act Independent Expert Advisory Panel.
And then?
She has been a member of the Prime Minister's Business Advisory Council alongside of Chris Luxon when he was CEO of Air NZ. Air NZ is also a member of the New Zealand Initiative.
And then?
Last but not least, she is also the chair of NZME.
And then?
Whew. All right, now let's go full circle. So, we all know that NZME is currently undergoing a coup due to the Canadian billionaire James Jim Grennan. Old mate Jimmy made a lot of his money from the oil and gas industry, starting out with his oil and gas focused investment banking firm and then with a company called Canadian Natural Resources Limited, which is now the largest independent producer of natural gas in Western Canada and the largest producer of heavy crude oil in Canada. He did this along with his mate Norman Murray Edwards, who is still a director of CNRL to this day. Uncle Norm also runs two leading think tanks in Canada, the C.D. Howe Institute and the Canada West Foundation, who are part of a powerful network of other Canadian think tanks working towards policy that keeps oil and gas and mining in control. Such Canadian think tanks are the Fraser Institute, the Manning Centre and the Frontier Centre for Public Policy. These three think tanks are all members of the Atlas Network. Many of you watching this will be familiar with their names because David Seymour, ACT Party leader and now soon to be Deputy PM, used to work for both the Manning Centre and the Frontier Centre for Public Policy. Here he is speaking on Alberta Primetime TV about how Calgary, the capital of Alberta, should be spending less on public transport and more on roads. Which may sound good in theory, but it actually directly benefits the oil sands industry. Because you see, bitumen, a key ingredient in asphalt, is extracted from oil sands to build what? Roads! You get it. And who are the two key players in the oil sands industry? Why, Uncle Norm and his old mate Jimmy. But don't forget they are also oil and gas. Canadian oil and gas. Now, who paved the way for old mate Jimmy to purchase nearly 10% of NZME and start forcing control over the board? Well, of course, the Free Speech Union are taking credit for that. Remember, they're a member of the Atlas Network. This was confirmed through the Free Speech Union's chief executive, Jonathan Ayling, who attended the Atlas Network's 2022 Asia Liberty Forum a year after becoming the CEO of the Free Speech Union, and was mentioned on the Atlas Network's website as being a panelist in the discussion on social media, disinformation, and the threat to freedom of speech. And guess what else is interesting? Johnny Boy also used to be a parliamentary advisor to National Party MPs for about 8 years. Now, the Free Speech Union obviously has a strong relationship with the New Zealand Taxpayers Union, not only through their Atlas Network membership, but also through one of its founders and board members, Jordan Williams, who also co-founded the New Zealand Taxpayers Union in 2013 and is its current chief executive. The TPU's other co-founder is David Farrar. David is also the founder of Courier Market Research. Courier Market Research runs polls that this government relies upon to sway public opinion and feign support, even though Courier Market Research and its polls were found in breach of industry standards by the Research Association of New Zealand. And instead of facing the music, David Farrar resigned Courier Market Research from RANZ, which, by the way, is the only industry body dedicated to professional providers and users of research, data, and insights. And to have one of its trust marks indicates that the bearer upholds the highest professional and ethical standards. So what does that say about David and his Courier Market Research? And what does that say about our government and mainstream media who continue to use these unprofessional and unethical polls by Courier? So anyways, it was the Atlas Network's Johnny Boy, who runs the Atlas Network's Free Speech Not a Union, who invited the Atlas Network aligned old mate Jimmy to take over NZME from the Atlas Network's Barbara Chapman. Whew! And remember, they are all directly connected to the Atlas Network's Taxpayers Union through the Atlas Network trained Jordan Williams. And guess who was the acting chair? Ruth Richardson. You know, the ex-National Finance Minister that our bestie Nikki has been compared to by Andrea? Crazy, right? And get this. The time that Ruthie was finance minister, which was from 1990 to 1993, is known as Ruthanasia. And it was called this because of the harshness of her neoliberal economic policies that were basically euthanizing support for the lower and working classes. Things like cutting unemployment and sickness benefits, reducing state housing support, and introducing the Employment Contracts Act, which weakened trade unions. Sounding pretty familiar? Well, just as this government is seeing a massive rise of the people and pushback from unions, workers and activists, as did Ruthie and the National Party back then. Come election time in 1993, Ruthie lost her role as finance minister and then left Parliament altogether in 1994, forcing a by-election to become a founding member of the ACT Party alongside Alan Gibbs and a bunch of others that we're not going into right now. She is also a member of the Mont Pelerin Society, like a whole bunch of these people, but we're also not going into that in this video. But even though many New Zealanders were unhappy with Ruthie's neoliberal policies, the elite over at the Atlas Network feel the opposite. They actually commend her and Roger Douglas, the founder of the ACT Party, for the economic liberalisation of New Zealand, and they claim that it remains an inspiring case study of fostering economic growth through rolling back government subsidies and protectionist import controls. How sweet. And look at this little family reunion at an Atlas Network conference in Miami in 2016, which appears to be a leadership academy. And who have we got here? David Seymour, leader of the ACT Party, Alan Gibbs, one of the founders of the ACT Party, Ruth Richardson, one of the founding members of the ACT Party, Roger Douglas, the founder of the ACT Party, and Tom Palmer, who is the executive vice president for international programs at the Atlas Network.
I think that in this case, in New Zealand, that, you know, they're doing it to try to undermine David Seymour.
So, I mean, 1 + 1 = 2, right? And what the math is mathing here is that this ain't no conspiracy theory. This is a literal, genuine-ass conspiracy where every move that this government makes needs to be scrutinized more than ever because it's coming right out of a corporate playbook designed to entrench their control. But yeah, super funny Andrea Vance called Nikki a cunt.